on behalf of Kentucky Valley Educational Cooperative. I've been working with Miss Perry for a few weeks. I met her this summer, which was pretty cool. I know you all love Miss Perry, and I just want to say, so do I. So in case you guys are 8th grade, right? So at the end of the year, you're going to be taking a big old test, you know? And it's going to be, you know, very different. But I think the big thing is that Miss Perry is working super duper hard in these new standards that we've got for social studies. I'm sure you guys can already tell it looks a whole lot different than, let's say, 5th grade, doesn't it? You're talking about some of the same stuff, right? I hear you out there. I hear you breathing. It'd be great if you said yes. Oh, good. Okay, there's a little good. I heard one. I know you're there. So anyway, because of that, and even though Miss Perry and I've been teaching for a long time, these standards are so different that what we're doing is we're collaborating together. We're working together because she wants to strengthen her skills in this, because all I've heard is how awesome this 8th grade class is. So every time we talk, she talks about this 8th grade. So I know you won't disappoint, because she likes y'all a whole lot. So she's really excited about you guys being the ones that are going to be filmed. Now let me tell you a little bit about these cameras. These two gentlemen here, do you guys think they look a lot alike? If you looked at her, do you think they look alike? Yeah. Okay, good, because they're twins. This is the guy who just took his glasses off. It's going to put his glasses back on. Is Adrian, okay, and that is Alex beside of him.
This guy right here is actually working with Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, don't have that against him.
Yeah.
He's a robot.
Yeah, so you guys, it's pretty cool. Yeah, he has. So anyway, what we're doing here, there's a camera here. Now, what's your name, please? What is it? Sybil?
Sydney.
Sydney, thank you. These masks. I can't hear a thing because I can't see your face. So anyway, so behind Sydney is a camera there. You guys see that it's on. There's a camera right here behind Alex. And there's a camera, and plus he has one in his hand. And oh, yeah. And then, of course, that's another camera. So the whole idea here is that what you guys are going to be part of, which is pretty cool, what you guys are going to be part of is a learning series for other teachers. They're going to be watching you guys to see how to teach these new standards. So this is going to go on our Holler website, which is international. People from all around the world go to our Holler website, and they use it for different things. So you're going to be a celebrity. Cool. Can I get a thumbs up? Maybe. Very enthusiastic. I can see Sydney's I can tell you're really excited. See, now I've learned your name. I'm going to say it the whole period. So if you guys don't care, I'd just like to go around the room and have you guys tell me your name. I've been teaching for a long time. This is real. This is real. This was not added. Okay, so I was going to say God bless you. All right, so here we go. What's your name?
Macy.
Macy?
Harley.
Harley?
Harley.
Spell it.
A-R-L-I-E.
Gotcha.
Ava.
Ava. Oh, I love that.
Julie.
Julie? You all have really pretty names.
Holler.
Thank you. Yeah.
McKenna.
McKenna. Natalie. My best friend was Natalie when I was little. Go ahead.
Her name's
Chloe. Awesome. Jacob.
Kobe.
Kobe. Excellent. Sydney. Lexi. Angela. Jack. Oh, Jack. Another friend of mine named Jack. Go ahead.
My name's Harmony.
Harmony. Awesome.
No, Jordan.
Huh?
Jordan.
Jordan.
Yeah.
Awesome.
CJ.
CJ.
Lucy.
Lucy. My mother used to call me Lucy. We'll talk about that later. All right. That was my nickname for my mom. I can almost memorize y'all's. Don't ask. Arlie. Yes, Arlie. Awesome. Macy. Julie. Ava. Ugh. Tyler. Yes. Isabel. Natalie. Ah. McKenna. Chloe. Just give me a hint. Just give me a hint. Huh? No, dude. This is real. I told you. This is real. Kobe, like the cheese. Kobe cheese. Okay, got it. Cheese. Kobe, go. What's your name? Jacob. Sydney. No, don't tell me. Don't tell. Gosh. I know that's Chloe. That's Chloe. Oh, tell me. Lexi. Angela? Yep. Jack. Harmony. Jordan. CJ. Lucy. Got it. Okay, I got most of them.
Pretty good.
that was hard. Okay, so you guys see that so I know you guys have been talking about compelling questions and supporting questions in here, right? So we know that compelling questions do what? Or just describe what a compelling question is. That would be great. Don't be afraid. We'll edit it out if you mess it up so people aren't going to see that part. Be bold. Be courageous. Be brave. A compelling question does what? I'm giving you a hint when I go like this. It's that big question that Miss Perry asked, right? It's a question that can be answered easily. But a supporting question does what? Yes, it takes you to the compelling question, doesn't it? So your all supporting question is up here on the thing. This is the question we're going to look at today, which is why were the colonists upset by the Stamp Act? So you guys have been talking about the colonists a whole big bunch. Notice that we don't call them the British anymore, do we? We've started calling them the colonists. Would someone like to be like one of those historians on TV and show off a little bit and tell us why have they gone from being subjects of the crown to colonists? Anybody?
Because they wanted independence.
They're building to that, aren't they? Yeah, they don't really want to see themselves. And here's the thing, too. Hasn't the crown ignored them a little bit? So the crown has ignored them a little bit. So they don't really see themselves as, as subjects anymore. They're really kind of colonists. Okay, so that being said, do you care to click, Miss Perry? How do we click the thingamajigger? So that being said, we're going to go into using primary sources today. All of you guys have in front of you a little set of primary sources, and you have a graphic organizer. That graphic organizer is going to be your organizational task today as we go through. But you've got those sources in front of you, and we're not going to use that fourth sheet on the sources, so you don't have to worry about that one, okay? So first I want to ask you guys, what are primary sources? So I know you know what this is, because you've been talking about it a lot. Again, remember, we're never going to make you look bad. That's the beauty of these two gentlemen back here. They're going to make you look like geniuses, because they're going to cut out the parts where you struggle and you stutter. So don't worry, okay? We got you, okay? So that being said, somebody tell me, what are primary sources? Jack, you made eye contact with me. That's not a good thing, So Jack, I'm going to ask you, and guess what? It's right above Harmony's head. Wink, wink. So what are primary sources? First-hand account, absolutely. It's a record or it's evidence, and it's from somebody or from the person. Like if you read a speech by Abraham Lincoln because Abraham Lincoln wrote it, it's a primary source. If you're looking at a picture, and by the way, Abraham Lincoln is the first president, he took pictures monthly, and he took several pictures monthly because there was a photographer down the street, plus when he would go to different battlefields or different meetings and things like that, there was a photographer that would be near. And so that is meetings with his generals, and when he would go, a photographer would capture him. So Abraham Lincoln is one of the first presidents that we have extensive photographs of. So if you're looking at a photograph of Abraham Lincoln, that is a primary source as well. So now what is a secondary source?
An account recorded or evidence from a primary source.
So like for instance, Arlie, let's say you're doing a report on Abraham Lincoln, and you may do that this year. You're going to look at pictures, you're going to read speeches, you're going to even maybe read a letter or two, that kind of thing, and you're going to put it all together to tell us about Abraham Lincoln. So all of those things together for you to write that report that you write, that Arlie's going to write, is going to become a secondary source because it's going to teach you all something. Right, Jacob? Yes, I got it. So that being said, so let's talk about the types of primary sources. And then I'm going to ask you guys the questions, why do we need them in social studies, okay? So let's look at these two little things I've made. So we've got this one. So examples of primary sources. So we've got diaries. So why is a diary a primary source?
Because somebody read about their life.
About their life. But now let me ask you this. If they write that diary and they know somebody's going to read it, is it real or is it make-believe? A little bit. So let me ask you this. Does that mean that primary source now, that diary is authentic, or is it a little bit unreliable?
Unreliable.
Why? Why, Macy?
Because maybe somebody don't want to know everything about them and they just live a little bit.
Yeah. Like, I get tired of these girls on Instagram who look so perfect, plus they use a filter. I'm like, that is not a primary source, honey. You have, because you are not real in this picture, okay? You know, I get tired of that because if it's real, to me, that's primary, right? But if you alter it because you know the whole world's going to see it, then it's not real anymore. Like the Diary of Anne Frank. Any of you guys read that yet? Or are you going to read it this year maybe or something in your English classes? Do you know if they read it? There's some controversy about that. I'm going to say it out loud because the Diary of Anne Frank, she knew the entire time she was writing. By the way, if you haven't read it, I recommend it. It's wonderful. And it's great for this age sometimes. But you would have to talk to your parents before you read it. But that being said, Anne Frank knew it was going to be published. So is it a real diary?
No.
So see, you have to think about that. So other things would be journals. Again, that's like a diary. Photographs. Nowadays with photographs being retouched, but they're still primary because it's a picture of the person. Letters between people, government letters, like letters from presidents, letters from generals, letters from everyday people. Let's say from somebody to a person on the battlefield, whatever it may be. Oral histories or recorded interviews, and you guys see those all over YouTube. Guess what? Those are primary sources. I dare say if you have made a TikTok, my friends, you have created a primary source because that is you. That is your words, that's your thoughts, that's a primary source. Get this, what a primary source is going to be in the beginning. Text. Because if your text messages, are ever retrieved and that kind of thing, can you imagine in 50 years, depending on where we are, if somebody comes back to study how, like students at Viper Elementary, everything you produce is considered a primary source because that reveals something about you. So we've got speeches, government documents, other kind of documents too, by the way, videos, objects. So for instance, if you have a football that is signed by some UK football players and is sitting in your room, that thing is a primary source because it tells you who was on that team that year. So even objects can be, like a miner's lamp, anything like that can be a primary source. But let's talk about examples of secondary sources. So a secondary source, if it's an account made from a primary source, then here you guys are looking at, that's a news article, that's a documentary. Sometimes people want to say documentaries. Documentaries can have primary sources in them, but they're not primary sources, are they? The whole thing together makes a secondary. Now videos, paintings, maps, I've given you guys a little thing that says can sometimes be a primary source. Sometimes, and let's think of that famous painting of George Washington. If you get out a $1 bill right now and you're looking at it, right? That $1 bill has a painting, or it's a replica of a painting of George Washington. Why is sometimes a painting not a primary source? So
Someone else saw the person.
someone else, oh wow, I like that. Somebody else saw that person? So they represented that person how they saw him, right? Can they sometimes make a person look a little bit better in a painting? Yeah. Oh, I love that, Angela. Angela's like, yes, they can. Like, I would like to have a painting done because it would not look like this. But anyway, so just you see what I'm saying? So we have to think about those things. So as we go through these primary sources today, and right here we're going to be sourcing, which I know you guys have done this tons, where we're going to keep sourcing those documents, and we're going to contextualize those documents. And we're going to talk about what that means, okay? So that being said, I'd like for everybody to get out their packets. And I know mine's all written on. You guys are going to be talking to your partners today. It's going to be very important. I know that according to COVID protocol, you can't move and get up around the room. But you're going to turn your desk just like you do with Miss Perry, and you're going to talk to each other and everything, okay? So that being said, let's go through. So I'm going to click. So let me ask you guys this question now. Why do we need primary sources in social studies? Think about that for just a second. You don't have to answer. So in 10 seconds, I'm going to tell you to tell me why. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you this. No, I'm not. I was going to tell you who I'm going to ask that question of first, but I won't. So I want you to think, why do we need primary sources in social studies? So why do we need those? Ready? In 10. You got 10 seconds to think about it. 9. So think deeply. 8. 7. 6. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Somebody not in this corner, because this corner's been talking to me all day. I'd love for somebody around this side of the room to tell me, why do we need primary sources?
If we didn't have them, we wouldn't know what they meant. I mean, what they said was real.
Yeah, we wouldn't know what happened in history, really, would we? We could just say it all day long, but we wouldn't have proof. What's another word that we use in social studies for proof? Evidence. Incredibly important. What other subject do you guys use evidence in a lot? Reading and science. Good, good. See, science and social studies are going to be incredibly similar. So we've talked about what primary sources are. We've already gone through this slide, didn't even need it. But the thing I want you guys to look up there, the last two bullets. Primary sources are clues into why people did what they did and why an event happened, whatever it may be. But most importantly, look at the last one. We use them in social studies to develop our claims. Now, you guys have been talking about claims all year, haven't you? In science and social studies. So this is where we're going to make that correlation right now. So go ahead and click. So why were the colonists? So everything we talk about today with these three sources, everything we talk about is going to be to answer this question. So why were the colonists upset by the Stamp Act? So if everybody would do me a favor, at the top of the page of each one of these sources, I want you to write this question. Just jot it down really quickly because I want this to be in your head. So at the top of each source, write, why were the colonists upset by the Stamp Act?
Sorry. I just heard somebody behind me and I looked back and it just...
That's quite all right, Jordan. Don't you worry about that. He was in your space, not the other way around, so you're okay.
I'm sorry.
No, we're sorry. Okay, take about another 20 seconds if you haven't done all of these yet. I want to say thank you guys for working so hard. I see everybody jotting those down real quick. Okay, so why were the colonists upset by the Stamp Act? So let's look at that first primary source. So go ahead and flip it there. So you guys will see up here on the board, we're going to be looking at three sources today. So, and all three of these, if you guys will notice, so look at the screen there. What's the one thing that all three of these have in common? They're all public letters. So they're going to have to, we've got to remember the year is 1766. Do they have the internet in 1766? No. Do they have, let's say, widespread newspapers in 1766? Sort of, yeah, like that. You guys were like, yeah, they got those. So now we know pretty much how these public letters are going to appear. They're not going to appear on Facebook. They're not going to be on Instagram. They're not going to be, on Snapchat, anything like that, TikTok. These things are going to be hard copies. So I also want you to think about in 1766, I'm going to ask you this question. Can everyone read? Is reading widespread in 1766? So ponder that as we go through them. So ready? Go to the next one. So I'll go to the first one. Go to the next slide. See, I just did the exact same thing you did, Chloe. Guys, you're going to edit this right here. Don't you dare put me bending over and picking something up on this thing, okay? All right. Thank you. There's an edit point. All right, ready? So as we go through each of these documents, you guys are going to talk. I said table partner, so that means you're going to turn to them and talk to them. And we're going to complete our graphic organizer. That's the thing that looks like this. This is going to be super duper important for you guys to use today, okay? All right, so go ahead and click it. Go ahead and click it. You're quite all right. So source number one is document A, BW's letter. So go ahead and click it, Miss Perry. I'm going to read it to you, so do nothing to it. Matter of fact, if you would, put your pencil down for just 2 seconds, because I want you to listen to me read it. So ready? Now, first, before I do anything, I like to source it. So everybody look up at the top. There's the source. So up here, that's going to be these things right here. And that is, who was the creator or author? When was it created? Where was it created? Why? And what is the creator's perspective? And then after we read it, we're going to talk about whether we think it's reliable or not. So looking at that sheet, I want you to answer these questions. So who is the creator? So read that paragraph there and tell me, who is the creator? Every time you all get a primary source and a secondary source, immediately source it. So who is the creator? What? BW, thank you. Was that you, Lexi? Yes, thank you, Lexi. So it's BW. We don't know who BW is, right? All right, so let's move on down. So when was it created? So when did this appear? 1765. Matter of fact, October of 1765. Very good, thank you. So where was it created?
The Boston,
Massachusetts? I know that's a hard one to say, yes. So yes, it's created in Massachusetts because it appears in a Boston newspaper, right? So this was created in Massachusetts. Then most importantly, then we're going to look up here too, and we're going to say, what is the and why was it created? Well, those two questions we can't answer till the first time we read it. So ready? I'm going to read it out loud if you guys don't care. Matter of fact, we're going to read these things 3 times each. So I'm going to read it the first 2 times, and then you guys are going to read it in your pairs the 3rd time. So ready? Here we go. So follow along with me. To the inhabitants of the province of the Massachusetts Bay, my dear countrymen, it is a standing maxim, and by the way, if you need to look up a word, if it's bolded, look at the bottom. It'll tell you the meaning of that word so you don't get stuck there. So let me start over. It is a standing maxim of English liberty that no man shall be taxed but with his own consent. And you very well know we were not, in any sober sense, represented in Parliament when this tax was imposed. Awake, awake, my countrymen, and defeat those who want to enslave us. Do not be cowards. You were born in Britain, the land of light, and you were raised in America, the land of liberty. It is your duty to fight this tax. Future generations will bless your efforts and honor the memory of the saviors of their country. I urge you to tell your representatives that you do not support this terrible and burdensome law. Let them know what you think. They should act as guardians of the liberty of their country. I look forward to congratulating you on delivering us from the enemies of truth and liberty. Now that being said, now let's go up here and answer the last 2. So why was this document created?
The tax was unfair.
Say it again?
The tax was unfair.
The tax, he felt the tax was unfair, right. So that's what he thought. But why did he create this then?
to warn people that, to warn people to stand up against the tax.
To warn people, to get them to stand up? Anybody else want to add a little something to that? Why do you think he created it? Don't be afraid. Be bold. Be courageous. See, this is the beauty of history, you guys. There's not one exact answer for everything. Because it's all about you reading it and you understanding it and giving your claim. So let's go on to the next one. You guys think about that. So what is the creator's perspective? So what is his perspective on this? His point of view. So what do you think is let's see. Oh, heavens to Betsy, behind Natalie. McKenna! McKenna, oh my gosh. So McKenna, do you have a thought about what his point of view or his perspective is? Huh? Okay, keep pondering it. Who wants to help her out? Who wants to predict? Now you're predicting, so that means it's not always right. You can come back and change it. Like you guys do in science all the time. Predict what you think his point of view is. He's not willing to support what? The law? The Stamp Act? Absolutely. So we already know that he's probably on the side of the colonists. Good. So let's look up here. So what I want you guys to do with your partners now, we've got this information up here. So here's what I want you guys to put on your chart. Who wrote this? What is his job? Does he side with England or with the colonists? And I want you to cite evidence in this. You're going to pull it out. So I'm going to read it one more time before you guys go to your pairs and read this again. So ready? To the inhabitants of the province of the Massachusetts Bay. So I would underline Massachusetts Bay because you need to know where this is. So you guys have been talking about Massachusetts a lot already, haven't you? You're getting ready to talk about it a big bunch. My dear countrymen, is it a standing maxim of English liberty that no man shall be taxed but with his own consent? And you very well know we were not, in any sober sense, represented in Parliament when this tax was imposed. Awake, awake, my countrymen, and defeat those who want to enslave us. Do not be cowards. You were born in Britain, the land of light, and you were raised in America, the land of liberty. It is your duty to fight this tax. Future generations will bless your efforts and honor the memory of the saviors of their country. I urge you to tell your representatives that you do not support this terrible and burdensome law. Let them know what you think. They should act as guardians of the liberty of their country. I look forward to congratulating you on delivering us from the enemies of truth and liberty. That being said, think now, I'm going to ask you that question. Why were the colonists upset by the Stamp Act? So ready? Turn to your partners, fill in your graphic organizer, just for the first document. 4 minutes.
I wasn't given a chart.
Oh, heavens to Betsy. We have to fix that. Yeah, so get some action over here, absolutely. So you guys can turn around and work together, right? Ava, you and Sydney, y'all turn around and work with each other. Lexi, I did it again. Heavens to Betsy.
No, we have to find evidence of how we're not being sided with.
Oh, that one.
Now, if you guys had to tell me, who does he side with? Like it says in that second, does he side with the English or the colonist? The colonist. So that's what you were going after right now was your evidence, right? So what evidence are you going to pull out that tells you? Now, you don't have to choose the same one he does. Matter of fact, I would love it if you choose different. So just think of some of the evidence that you would pull out. You can do this on an individual basis, by the way. But what clues in this writing does he lay out for you there that tells you he's for the colonist? Okay, so on that second question there, you guys, on that second thing there, says, what side does he side with? Remember, just pull out a sentence that you feel tells you which side he sides with. Tell us which side he sides with, but then I want you to put, so you've said the colonist here. So what's something here that he wrote that tells you that he's for the colonist? Pull out any sentence and show me. Get this. So, okay, what is that? Read that out loud and tell me what sentence it is. It is your duty to fight against it. Right. So why do you think that it is him saying that it's their right to fight against this tax tells you that he's for the colonist? Why?
Because they were raised in America?
Because they were raised in America. You know, and it's a whole idea also as colonist. So in this case, if he's definitely not siding with the English, right? So, and you know that because he's telling them to rise up against the English. So very good. Thank you. Thank you. So based on this source, what's going on in America in 1766?
They're being heavily taxed
Why are they being heavily taxed?
because you see over there in England, they're really broke, so they're trying to make their money.
Why are they? Oh my God. You hold on to that. I'm going to use you out loud, right? I'm going to get you to talk out loud. Okay, so ready? 20 seconds. 18, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Okay, so let's go through these questions really quickly. So, who wrote this source? Like we said, who wrote this, and what is his job? So let's start with you up here, Lucy. So who wrote this, and what is his job? So we think he possibly can write for the newspaper, right? We don't know who he is, though, officially. So we're making an inference there, like you guys sometimes do in English. So we're kind of predicting, we're taking a guess there. So we think there's a possibility that he works for the newspaper. He may be someone of reputation in the community. We don't really know, do we? Don't know a whole lot about BW, but we know BW wrote it, right? But most importantly, let's go to the next one. Does he side with England or with the colonists? And I want you to cite evidence from the source. So which side does he side with? The colonists. Every one of you said the colonists. So I would love it if people would give me different points of evidence for that. And listen carefully to what people say about this. So I'm going to come up here, Jordan. How do you know he sides for the colonists?
He said, awake, awake, my countrymen, and defeat those who want to enslave us.
Very good. So if somebody's telling you to awake, awake, fight this, what emotion are they trying to get from the people reading it? How are they trying to get the people that are reading it to feel? Get them riled up. That's a perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for, Jack. Absolutely. So let's come over here. So somebody else give me a piece of evidence over here that you chose that said he was for the colonist. Make sure it's different from Jordan. Okay, first sentence. Notice how she told you guys right where to go. First sentence in the third paragraph. Read that for us.
I urge you not to tell your representatives to not support this terrible and
Burdensome law. Very good. So notice you guys, these two had the same opinion, but notice how they had different evidence. It's all about choosing the evidence that supports your claim. So now I'm going to ask you guys a question. I'm going to get Kobe here to answer it because Kobe and I had a discussion about this. So based on the source, what's going on in America in 1766? So Kobe, what's going on in America in 1766?
Well, they're being taxed pretty hard because
Yeah,
Britain over there, they're broke. They just want to make some money.
they are broke. Why are they broke, Kobe? Does anybody remember why they're broke? Because of the French and Indian War. Absolutely. Very good, guys. They're broke because of the French and Indian War. So how has the Stamp Act affected him personally? So use evidence from the source. Thank you, guys. You're all working so hard on these. So do we know how it's affected him personally? Now, what can we kind of predict? If he's so mad about this, what can we kind of predict? Has it affected him? Or is it going to? So yeah, we're going to kind of say we don't know. So it's okay sometimes to put an I don't know in there. So ready? Let's go to the next source, you guys. Thank you. So document B. Now let me ask you guys, go back one. I forgot to do this one. So now I'm going to ask you guys this question. So do you trust, or do you believe this account? Notice how that's the last thing there. Do you believe this account?
Goodness.
Give me one reason why you do. Sorry about that, Lucy. Give me one reason why you do and one reason why you do not. So ready? 30 seconds, turn to your neighbors, talk it over. Do you believe his account? Give me one reason why and one reason why not. So ready? Go. Oh yeah, get in deep. Get right here, like right here. Yes. Oh, okay. Okay, ready? 20 seconds.
Yeah, we believe it.
Yeah. Okay, I tell you what did you guys just tell him why you believe him? One of you.
Because he's so sure about it. Like, he gets his point across so easily.
So it's about the emotion of the moment, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So maybe we can go back here. So Natalie, tell me why. Give me one reason. Do you guys trust him or not trust him? No. You don't trust him. Oh, see, all of you guys were like sheep following this guy. But Natalie's like, no, I don't believe him. So why do you not believe him, Natalie? You don't really know anything about him, do you? Did he tell you how he's affected? No, he did not. Ooh, now we're thinking, okay? All right, thank you. And so who did believe him? Somebody tell me who believed him. So Lucy, didn't you guys say that you believed him? Why did you guys believe him?
He was very upset about it, but it also could be biased.
It could be. Why could it be biased, Lucy?
Because he may be a part of the colonists.
Yeah, he may have a very, very good. So he's going to tell their side, right? So now I'm going to look at you guys. So this is by yourself. Everybody look at the question up here. Based on this source, what would be your claim in response to today's supporting question? Why were the colonists upset by the Stamp Act? So by yourself, think right now of how you would answer it. And right there, on the back of the sheet, wherever you want to put it, tell me how you would answer it just based on this source. So I'm going to give you 1 minute by yourself to think. This would be my answer right now with this one source. Why were the colonists upset by the Stamp Act? By yourself, write down why you think. Okay, about 30 seconds there to finish up. Now, we're not going to tell that one out loud, by the way. This is just for you, because tomorrow or tonight for Miss Perry, you guys are going to write, you're going to develop and support your claim, but most importantly, she's going to be the one that reads it, not me. So you guys hold on to that one. Okay, 10 more seconds. Okay, everybody flip over to document B. Now, let's source this one really. Everybody look up at the top, source that one, turn to your neighbors. Now that I have modeled it, I would like for you guys to do this with each other, okay? So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. So look up there at the top. What do you know about the person who created this document? So you can look up here to these questions. You can highlight them or underline them as you're answering these. So ready? Take 1 minute with your partners, source this document. We're going to come around and listen and make sure you're sourcing it. If you want to take that one, come up here to this group because they're going to do it immediately.
Okay.
Go get them real quick.
Pause and
Okay. So you guys talk nice and loud because he's going to film you guys sourcing this, okay? Yeah. So read there together. Okay. So who wrote this document? Look up at the top, because remember, we always use the information at the top. You guys, it's that paragraph at the top that you need, at the very top. Will Alfred, very good. So let's underline that. So Will Alfred wrote it, right? Now, who is Will Alfred? Do we know anything about him? When you read that paragraph at the top? We don't know a whole lot about him, do we? Doesn't say who he does, what he does, anything like that. Okay, good. But it does tell you why he created this document. So why did he create this document? So Sydney, I'll go to you. Why does he create this document? What does it say in that top paragraph up there? Above the letter. Why does he create it? For the secretary. For which secretary? Because there's two. So he's writing this to Secretary who? Conway. Very good. So he's writing this for Secretary Conway, right? That's the why he created it. When does he create it? January 1766. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So let's see how you guys did on sourcing this one before we get... So who wrote this? Will Alfred, absolutely. Now notice you guys, I'm not forcing you to raise your hands, you know, but big reason why, because sometimes in social, but I'm going to kind of start making you guys this, I get so excited to be with you all that I'm letting you just shout this stuff out. So where we have on mask, if you guys don't care, raise your hand and let me know you're going to be the one that answers so we can hear you nice and loud. But you're right. Absolutely Ava, right? Yes. It was Will Alfred, okay? So why does Will Alfred write this letter? Somebody raise your hand and tell us why you think he writes this letter. Again, if you've got the evidence, you can say what you need to say. Why do you think he writes this letter?
Because he is responsible for the relationship with the American colonists.
Okay, so he's wanting to talk a little bit about the relationship between the colonist and the crown, right, or parliament. Okay, so now let me ask you this. Where was it created? So look up at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and read this out loud, and I'm going to ask you guys this again. Will Alfred wrote this public letter to Secretary Henry Seymour Conway. Conway was one of two of Britain's secretaries of state and was responsible for relations with the American colonies. So again, coming back to this, Arlie, you're right. Alfred writes this letter because he's concerned about the relationship between the colonies and the crown, right? It says the letter was first published in a London newspaper. So what does that tell you about Will Alfred? If it's first he could have been a newspaper writer. But if he's writing, if it first appears in a newspaper in London, then where more than likely does Will Alfred live?
London.
In London, exactly. Because he's not going to send a letter to the colonies, is he? He's going to keep it right there at home. Very good. So see, this is historical clues. You're like detectives, okay? The letter was first published in a London newspaper and then was published in the Boston Gazette supplement of January 27, 1766, nearly 3 months after the Stamp Act went into effect. So keep that in mind. That's the when, okay? So it's 3 months before January. So when did he write this? 1765? About what time was it? About November, October, okay? So ready? I'm going to read the letter to you. It says, from a late London paper to Mr. Secretary Conway. The riotous behavior of the people in Boston is remarkable. I would have been less surprised by their behavior if we had taxed their beer, because everyone drinks beer. But the Stamp Act is a tax on none of the necessities of life. It does not affect the poor. And even a poor person can afford this little amount of money. The tax on newspapers only affects the rich. Common people do not purchase newspapers. Well, I'll talk about that in a minute. Isn't it surprising then that the mob in Boston has begun to riot against this tax even before it officially goes into effect? I was I was expressing my wonder at this when I was informed that it was not the burden of the tax to be raised, but the manner in which it was imposed that created the discontent. If this is so, the matter is more serious than it may first appear. The colonists are our brethren and fellow subjects. I almost started talking, but but we have to read it all the way through, sorry. We should ask, therefore, whether we have behaved to them as brethren. The first birthright privilege of a Briton is that he cannot be legally tried but by his peers. One of the next is that he cannot be taxed but by a parliament in which he is represented. Do these who impose taxes on the colonist pay also themselves a share of these taxes? If this is not the case, what have the colonists done that they are to be stripped of one of the most valuable privileges of Britons? Have the Parliament of Great Britain a right to take from any, the lowest of the subjects, the smallest privilege which he inherits by birthright, unless forfeited by law? Let me ask you guys this. Now, this is not on your questions. I just want to ask you this after I read this to you. Is this guy rich, poor, middle class? What would you say?
Rich.
Why would you say rich, Lucy?
Because he's talking about how it's like super easy to pay for all this stuff.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Everybody's got that kind of money, right? There's something else that he says that he tells you that he definitely has an opinion about poor people. That this tax would not affect them. What's something else that he says that tells you, oh, what is it, that comment he made about the newspapers? Did you all see Miss Perry and me look at each other? When we read that line, I'll read it to you again. The tax on newspapers only affects the rich. Why is he trying to say it only affects the rich?
He just think poor people don't have enough money to spend.
They don't have enough money to spend on a newspaper, but most importantly, he says that poor people don't buy newspapers because they probably can't do what? Read. So this man definitely has a perspective, doesn't he? Now let me ask you this question. Even though this is going ahead of the game a little bit, is he for the British or for the colonist? Ooh, so ready? Guess what I'm getting ready to do? Oh Lord, I'm going to read it one more time because y'all got to talk in your groups. Here we go, one more time, because you need to hear this twice before y'all go talking about it. From a late London paper to Mr. Secretary Conway, the riotous behavior of the people in Boston is remarkable. I would have been less surprised by their behavior if we had taxed their beer, because everyone drinks beer. But the Stamp Act is a tax on none of the necessities of life. It does not affect the poor. And even a poor person can afford this little amount of money. The tax on newspapers only affects the rich. Common people do not purchase newspapers. Isn't it surprising then that the mob in Boston has begun to riot against this tax even before it has officially gone into the effect? I was expressing my wonder at this when I was informed that it was not the burden of the tax to be raised, but the manner in which it was imposed that created the discontent. If this is so, the matter is more serious than we may first appear. The colonists are brethren and fellow subjects. We should ask, therefore, whether we have behaved to them as brethren. The first birthright privilege of a Briton is that he cannot be legally tried but by his peers. One of the next is that he cannot be taxed but by a parliament in which he is represented. Do these who impose taxes on the colonists pay also themselves a share of these taxes? If this is not the case, what have the colonists done that they are to be stripped by one of the most valuable privileges of Britons? Have the Parliament of Great Britain a right to take from any, the lowest of the subjects, the smallest privilege, which is inherits by birthright unless forfeited by law? So if you guys would, go into that, turn to your neighbors once again, go into, answer those questions together. And let's see what y'all figure out about Mr. Alfred.
He's supporting the idea that they shouldn't be taxed without representation. I know, but I think it's for both. I think he just.
You think he's for both? You better write that down, Arlie. Now, she doesn't have to write it down because she disagrees with you, and that's quite all right. But you write that down, Arlie. If you feel that he is for both sides, that's up to you. What do you think, Macy? You think he's for the colonist? Colonist? Disagrees with you, Arlie. Be bold, be brave. Stand on your own, man. Good deal. Now I gotta ask you all, what do y'all think of Mr. Alfred?
I'm kind of with Arlie over there.
You're with Arlie? Really?
This part is more of he's siding with
The British?
yeah. And then,
Why do you think, give me something he says that it tells you he sides with the British.
well, the way he cuts down like the taxes and says, you know, everybody drinks beer. And,
Yeah, everybody drinks beer. Everybody can afford the tax,
yeah,
right?
And then the necessities weren't taxed.
So he's saying that you can get your basic necessities, so why do you worry about it?
Yeah.
Everything else is just extra. But what's the other side of it? Why do you think he's also for the colonist?
Because of the birthright.
The birthright. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Ooh, so sorry.
Oh, no, you're good.
Okay, so go on down. So based on this account, as you guys see, so fill out that whole line on that chart all about him, about Mr. Alfred. So does he side with England or with the colonists? And I want you to give me evidence. So choose that sentence that we need to prove it. And then tell me if you think this affects him personally. Okay, so base, let's see. Okay, so what's going on? So pretty much we talked about what's going on, right? This is almost going to look the same all the way across. Awesome.
Hold out for 2 seconds to replace that bag. I'll give you a big.
Oh my God, why are you doing a close-up? Oh, Jesus. Good thing I have on a pretty mask. Okay, so ready? So let's bring this document together as a class now, okay? So Natalie, you did so great last time. I'll leave you alone this time. Well, you're welcome. All right, so ready? So who wrote this and what is his job? So we don't know what his job is, but you guys have definite opinions about Mr. Alfred, don't you? I've been hearing that all around the room. I've been walking around eavesdropping a little bit because that's important. So let's go on to the next question because that tells us more about Mr. Alfred. So does he side with England or with the colonists? Natalie is throwing her teammate under the bus, so let's go. So Chloe, tell us, if you don't care, and you don't have to talk real loud, but Chloe, whose side do you think he's on? Just say your words, Chloe. Who do you think he's for? The colonists or the British? Colonist. Why do you think he's for the colonist? Somebody want to help her out? Natalie got Chloe in on the act. Thank you so much, Ava. What?
He agrees with the idea that they should be taxed without representation.
He's like, wait a minute. Why was this birthright taken from? He even calls it a birthright, you guys. Something by birthright is a really big deal. So he's saying their birthright as British subjects has been taken from them. He even says, what did they do wrong to take this from them? Why would you do that? So thank you so much, Ava. So, but now some of you think that he's actually for both sides. So I'm going to open up that discussion. I'm going to start with Angela, and then I'm going to come to Arlie. So Angela, why did you guys think that he was also for the British? What does he say? Nice and loud because we can hear you through that mask.
Because he didn't really care about who could afford it. He thought anybody would have that amount of money. And then on the other hand, he was also worried about the birthright.
Yes, worried about that birthright. Arlie, what did you say?
I put that he isn't protesting the tax at all. He isn't like making stop the tax.
Oh.
He's just saying that what did they do wrong? to make the tax.
So he's just saying it's not that you taxed them, it's that you taxed them without their permission. Oh my gosh, Arlie, I've read this numerous times and I would have never thought of that. So see, he's not against the tax because he's like, oh, anybody can afford it. But Mr. Alfred really has a kind of a different perspective, doesn't he? Okay, so how has the Stamp Act affected him personally? Jordan, what do you think? Do you think it has affected him personally?
Not at all.
Not at all. Why do you say that?
He's rich.
Sounds like he's rich, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. It does sound like he's rich. Sounds like he's got the money because he says, oh, anybody can afford this. Just pay the tax, drink your beer, and go on with the day. Okay? So he's okay. Thank you. And then the last one, do you believe his account? So ready? This is when I'll let you all turn around, talk to each other for 30 seconds. Then I'm gonna do you guys raising your hands, and I'm gonna pick somebody to give me your evidence. So don't forget to have your evidence. Do you believe his account? 30 seconds. Turn to your neighbors. Tell me why or why not. Make sure you fill it in on that thing there.
But he's also concerned, yes.
I don't. I do.
I think think he's concerned, but
Jacob, do you believe him? His account?
Yeah.
You do? Why?
Because he's concerned, and he's like, why would you do that? But he's rich and.
Okay, so you believe him. So, because what does he have to lose, right? Is that what you're saying? Okay. I can do that. Yes, Natalie. Oh, Natalie, you want Miss Perry? Or do you? Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I think that there's a no and a yes because part of the document has evidence, but the other part of it doesn't.
Oh, so which part doesn't have the evidence that you want? What would you need to know? Oh my gosh, I like this. What would you need to know that is not in there about Mr. Alfred? So what would you need to know?
That like, so we don't know if he gave us the real evidence or not.
So we don't know
Because
if
he could be lying if he wanted to.
Why do you think he's possibly lying?
Because he's doing it for money. Because he's rich, and he's like.
Oh, so he needs the people in America to pay the tax, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't affect him. Heavens to Betsy.
It doesn't.
I never thought of that.
It doesn't affect him, but it'll affect other people.
Oh my gosh.
And half of the poor. And he talked about the poor people wrong badly, so he could just be doing it to get the poor people not being able to pay.
So, you know, I may get you to say that out loud in class. Can you do that nice and loud? Come on, just this one time. Just this one time. Or McKenna. See, maybe McKenna will help you.
What did I say again?
What did I say again? Okay. Sorry, guys. I gave you too much time on that. But you know what? You guys were coming up with such awesome stuff. I couldn't step away. So, Jacob, tell us, you said you believe him. Why? Yeah, Jacob says he's got nothing to lose. He's rich, so this tax is not going to affect him. But yet he takes the time to say, Britain, don't do this to the colonist. So he says he's got nothing to lose, so he feels like he's being completely honest. However, Natalie disagrees, and that's quite all right. So Natalie, why do you think that you don't believe him?
I forgot what I said.
You said you needed more evidence. Because there was that little piece of you that didn't believe him because he's
That I think he's using the poor people for more money, and that he can't let the poor people have enough money for their.
Yeah, he's kind of like, listen, I'm rich. Don't keep taxing me. Tax these people over here too. Because I don't want to keep giving all my money, right? Okay, guys, listen, you guys are absolutely phenomenal. You're right, Miss Perry. This bunch is awesome.
But I also think, could I say something?
Absolutely.
But I also think he's trying to head it off at the pass. You know what I'm saying? He realizes that there is something going to happen, and I think he's making these people aware. Do you all agree with me? Aware of what is going on, because when it says, I was expressing my wonder at this. Okay, I was informed that it was not the burden of the tax to be raised, but the manner in which it was imposed. That created the discontent. So he is saying to me, he's saying, you all need to do something. Because these people are not liking this, okay? You need to do something.
And he also brings up the birthright.
Yes, he's bringing this up to them. You know, he's making them seem like these are our brethren. You need to listen to them because they're really upset about this.
And he also says, I love the line when he says, we should ask, therefore, whether we have behaved to them as brethren. So he's actually, and so there you know he's British when he says that. Because he says, have we treated them fairly? So everybody go over to, actually flip it one more time. So we've talked about whether or not we believe him. Flip it again there, please. Now let me ask you guys this. Based on the two sources you have used today, how would you answer the question, why were the colonists upset by the Stamp Act? Jot that down 45 seconds. Let's give you a whole 45 seconds to do that. Ready? By yourself on the back of your paper, give me what evidence you would use from these two to justify your claim. Why the colonists were upset. So we have 10 more minutes? Okay. That's perfect to do the last one. Perfect. Perfect.
Not me today.
Honey, it's quite all right. We'll edit that out. Don't worry. We have magic. Hold your breath for 30 seconds or whatever. I don't know. That's what I do when I have hiccups.
My sister had the hiccups for 5 days.
Heavens to Betsy.
It was awful.
It had to have been.
It took a few minutes, didn't it? But they're really getting into it.
Well, see, that's why we have to practice it every day. And that's
So
why.
This is the way I go.
Yeah.
When do I let them do this on their own? How many times do I do it? Be a while.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So just go with it.
But I need something as a grade. So do I
Yeah.
take up and look at what they've written, or
Can you do a grade every other day? Let's talk about that in the coaching. Let's talk about that in the coaching part. Okay, so ready? Document C. Now you guys look at this one. Now this one, well, I'm just going to ask, because we're going to talk about on your all's paper what each of these, where each of these people live. We're going to make that summation there. So my lords, the colonists have been insulting His Majesty, saying that the Stamp Act was unconstitutional and oppressive. It is apparent to many people here that the Presbyterians are at the head of this riot. They are opposed to kings, and some cry out, "No king but King Jesus." The leaders fill every newspaper with inflammatory pieces. Again, you guys, look at the bottom if you don't know what a word means there, okay? So that the minds of the common people are kept in a continual ferment. No one dares write anything that would calm the people down. Doing so would put the writer's life and fortune in danger. I am convinced the Presbyterians intend nothing less than the throwing off their allegiance and obedience to His Majesty, and forming a republican empire in America, and being lords and masters themselves. I am daily threatened by verbal messages and anonymous letters with a mob of several thousand people from the Jerseys, New York, and New England. I conclude with praying that the Almighty may secure the allegiance of America to the crown of Britain by destroying the seeds of rebellion and by punishing the ringleaders of these riots. Now there's your first read. Let's look up at the top. So let's talk about, so who wrote this? What is his name? Somebody raise your hand and tell me real quick. Who wrote this? Arlie. Hughes. John Hughes. So everybody circle, underline, highlight, whatever you have to do, but that's his name. So notice we're going to do this one a little bit different. We're going to source this one out loud together, and we're going to make those marks so we know what we're talking about, right? So we can remember this. So his name is John Hughes. Now, who is John Hughes? Read the rest of that sentence. Natalie. He's a stamp tax collector. So bing, 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 before we even read the rest of this, this is why I didn't read this to you guys after the sourcing. Before the sourcing. I read it to you before. Wait, after. I didn't do it after. You know what I'm saying. So let's learn from this. So the reason why I did not read the source to you before I read it, I wanted you guys to see his perspective. So now that you've heard his perspective, which is his point of view, and now that you know that he's a tax collector, Sydney, what's his perspective, his point of view? Is he for or against the Stamp Act? If he's a stamp tax collector for Britain, he's for it. Absolutely. So I'm already going to be questioning him, aren't you? What am I going to look for in this source as I read it? Lucy said the word a little while ago. What am I going to look for as I read this now? Well, evidence, but I already know his position. So what is he going to put in this letter? So now let me ask it again. Because he is a stamp tax collector and he's writing a letter about the stamp tax. How does he look at it? He agrees with it. He is definitely a primary source. He agrees. I heard somebody say that he agrees with the stamp tax, or he's going to be for it, which means he is going to display bias. Yes. He is going to be biased in this letter. He has potential to be, doesn't he? So now when we read this, now I want to do this one a little bit differently. Every time you hear him say something that tells you he is all for the Stamp Tax Act and he is all for the British, I want you to give that a little underline. So I'm going to read it again. So read along with me, but this time underlying evidence as I go to show that he is for the stamp tax. My lords, the colonists have been insulting His Majesty, saying that the Stamp Act was unconstitutional and oppressive. It is apparent to many people here that the Presbyterians are at the head of these riots. They are opposed to kings, and some cry out, "No king but King Jesus." The leaders fill every newspaper with inflammatory pieces so that the minds of the common people are kept in a continual ferment. No one dares write anything that would calm the people down. Doing so would put the writer's life and fortune in danger. I am convinced the Presbyterians intend nothing less than the throwing off their allegiance and obedience to His Majesty, and forming a Republican empire in America, and being lords and masters themselves. I am daily threatened by verbal messages and anonymous letters with a mob of several thousand people from the Jerseys, New York, and New England. I conclude with praying that the Almighty may secure the allegiance of America to the crown of Britain by destroying the seeds of rebellion and by punishing the ringleaders of these riots. So now I want to ask you guys, let's go on in your, so what do we know? So let's fill out the chart together because we're almost out of time. So I want to do this one out loud together so you guys will be ready to write tomorrow, okay? So here we go. So we know who wrote this, John Hughes, right? So you guys can fill that in. We know, so what is his job? You've said it already. He's a stamp tax collector. Very good, thank you. Stamp tax collector. Now let's look at the next question. Does he side with England or with the colonists? England, absolutely. Now give evidence to this. Heavens to Betsy. Give me just one great sentence out of this thing that tells you he's all about the Britons.
Colonists have been insulting His Majesty, saying the Stamp Act was unconstitutional and oppressive.
Very good, Arlie. Thank you. So let's go on to the next one. So based on the source then, and by the way, all of you guys can use a different sentence, but you tell me, based on the evidence, is he for the English or the colonist? Everyone doesn't have to use the same sentence that Arlie just used. But based on the source, what's going on in America in 1766? So we know a little bit more about what's going on in 1766, don't we? With his letter. So now you tell me what's going on in 1766. Is what now? Oh, he's getting threatened? With anonymous letters? So if they're sending anonymous letters, what does that tell you about the attitudes of the colonists then? If they're sending anonymous letters to tax collectors? Oh, they're very upset, absolutely. Thank you, Jill. Say it again. Yeah, oh my gosh, they're scared, yeah. So that is the tax collectors, that's who you're saying was scared? Yeah, I'd be. Yeah, I like that. I mean, no, I don't like that, but I mean, thank you for recognizing that, yes. What do you think, Kobe? What's going on in 1766? Yeah, so it's a whole different, it's a very stressful world, isn't it? So now let's look at the next one. How has the Stamp Act affected him personally? Go.
They have been threatened by verbal messages and anonymous letters that they mobbed several thousand people.
Yeah, he has been personally impacted by the stamp tax, hasn't he? And Arlie did a great job of pulling out a bunch of evidence for that. And then let's look at the last one there. So we've talked about that. So let me flip to the next one. Let me run over here and get this. So let's look at our last question. And you're going to talk to your neighbors because I really want to hear your all's this on this one. Do you trust his account? Give me one reason why you do and one reason why you don't. 45 seconds, go. Talk to your neighbors fast. Do you girls care if I get you all to report out on this one? Would you do that? Are you a little scared to do that? Yeah. Why? You're so smart. Just do it. Oh, your nails are great. So Lucy, are you going to be my talker on this one? No. Oh, you're doing so great today.
I don't like it.
You don't like it? You don't like talking out loud? Well, it is with cameras.
I don't like being recorded.
I understand that. Jordan, will you be the person?
Sure.
That was telling. I like Jordan. I'm telling you. Okay, ready? Got 15 seconds. 14, 13, Now, I could tell you guys were pretty shy, so I didn't want to, bother you. Would you like to talk or no? Gotcha. Okay. But you've been with us. Have you enjoyed this today? Awesome stuff. Yes, yes. Oh, Miss Perry, you need Miss Perry? Miss Perry. She needs you. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I can't wait to hear this. I cannot wait. Do you believe his account? No. Oh, heavens, no. Now, come on, people. He's just a working man. Why do you not believe his account? One person raise your hand and tell me why. Oh, I love it.
Because he's being biased.
Why is he being biased?
Because he works for the tax collector.
Yeah, he works as a tax collector and he works for the British, right? So he's going to immediately blame somebody, isn't he? Yes.
There's no argument to easily be as bad as what they're making it seem like. Because he's just making it seem worse than whatever they.
Now, she says that he's making it seem worse than what it is because he is a tax collector. So he's going to get so he keeps saying, they won't say anything to calm the people down. Oh, no, they would never do that. Okay, so guess what, you guys? The last thing you guys are going to do, jot this down really quickly. Now that you've read all 3 sources, I want you, on the back of the paper there, tell me how you would answer the question, why were the colonists upset by the Stamp Act? So now add your other layer here, okay? Add your other layer here. And this is what I want you guys to think about tomorrow when you work with, and that's just not big enough. I need to make that bigger. I want you guys tomorrow when you work with Miss Perry, is I want you to develop your claim. Why do you think the colonists were upset about the Stamp Act? Why do you think? Okay? The second part, I want you to choose a quote or quotes that support your thinking and include that in your answer because that's your evidence. But most importantly, the third part tomorrow that you're going to work with Miss Perry on is you're going to tell us why the quote or quote supports your answers because that's your reasoning. So you guys tomorrow are going to develop an essay. It's up to her how long, how big, what she wants to make it, but that tells us why you think the colonists were upset by the Stamp Act. Can I tell you all something? I need y'all to do me a favor. Not for us, but for you. I want you to give you a little round of applause. Please. You guys were phenomenal. The whole world's going to see how, well, at least Kentucky is going to see how awesome you guys are, all right? Thank you all so much. Thank you, thank you. Yes, it's all yours. Absolutely.